Right, so we're diving deep into Al Capone, but not the same old gangster stories everyone always hears, right?
Right.
We're going to look at Capone
Right.
through a different lens, using the Enneagram
Yes.
to maybe figure out like what made him tick.
The Enneagram,
Yeah.
for any listener who maybe isn't familiar, is a system of 9 interconnected personality types.
Yeah.
And with Capone, we're looking at one in particular, the self-preservation 8.
Okay, so self-preservation 8.
Yeah.
I hear that, and like right away I think of someone who's like all about survival.
Yes.
They have to be in control to feel safe.
That's it.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine feeling like the world is just this dangerous place.
Right.
And you need to be in charge. Stay safe.
Yeah.
That's the core drive of this type.
Okay.
And, when we look at Capone's life, building his criminal empire, eliminating rivals, amassing this huge fortune, it wasn't just greed. It was this deep-seated need to control his environment. Control equaled survival in his mind.
So it's not just about like money and power,
Right.
but a deeper thing going on.
Yes.
Like a deeper psychological drive.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, does this connect to his image? Because, he always seems so composed, in control, almost untouchable.
Yeah, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
The self-preservation 8 fiercely resists vulnerability.
Okay.
Because to them, to be vulnerable is to be controlled.
Right.
To be taken advantage of. They build up all these defenses, like a wall around themselves.
Yeah.
And Capone's image, that carefully cultivated image of strength and invincibility, that was part of that wall.
It's so interesting because we have this picture of him as this like stone cold gangster.
Right.
But underneath, maybe there was like this deep fear driving all of his actions.
Fear of being controlled or betrayed.
Yeah.
And this fear can manifest as this need to be like several steps ahead.
Wow.
Always anticipating threats.
Right.
And for someone like Capone, that meant taking preemptive action.
Oh, right.
Even violence.
Right.
To maintain control.
Okay.
Like, for example, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
A brutal act, often attributed to Capone's gang.
Right.
That was likely a move to eliminate rivals and solidify his dominance.
So even like his most ruthless actions, you could trace them back to this like primal need for security.
It's certainly a perspective worth considering.
Yeah.
And remember that famous Capone quote?
Which one?
You can get much farther with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone.
Yeah, there's some dark humor there.
Definitely.
But it highlights a core principle for him, right?
Yeah.
Results mattered more than anything.
Absolutely. He was pragmatic, action-oriented, and definitely not afraid to bend the rules.
No, not at all.
For a self-preservation 8, achieving their goals, whatever those may be, takes priority.
Right.
And sometimes, as we see with Capone, that means operating outside the law, using force, or manipulating others to get what they want.
Yeah.
His involvement in the Cicero elections back in 24 is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
He used intimidation and violence to make sure his candidates won, essentially creating a political environment that served his interests.
So it's not just about personal security, but control over like systems and structures.
Absolutely, for Capone. That need for control extended beyond just his physical safety. It was about power, influence, and ensuring his survival in a world that he perceived as hostile and unpredictable.
And all of this fits into the self-preservation 8 type.
Yes, and psychologist Beatrice Chestnut dives deeper into the nuances of this type.
Okay.
She describes them as pragmatic, focused on material satisfaction, guarded, and reluctant to open up emotionally. Let's break that down in relation to Capone, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first,
Okay.
his criminal operations were incredibly efficient
Yeah.
and ruthlessly profit-driven,
Right.
pure pragmatism. Second,
Okay.
that lavish lifestyle that he was known for wasn't just about luxury.
Right.
It was about showcasing his power and security through material wealth. Third, his relationships were mostly transactional, built on loyalty and benefit rather than emotional intimacy.
So he kept people at arm's length.
Exactly.
Like true emotional intimacy would feel too risky.
Yes, it would have exposed a vulnerability he couldn't tolerate.
Yeah.
And finally, let's consider this Capone quote. I'm just a businessman.
Oh, the irony providing a public service.
Right.
Oh, man.
But this speaks to the self-preservation eight's incredible ability to rationalize their actions, even the most harmful ones, as necessary for their survival or the good of their tribe.
And tribe, in the Enneagram context, refers to like their inner circle.
Exactly.
The people they trust and feel responsible for.
Right.
But this raises an important question.
It does.
Like how much of Capone's ruthlessness stemmed from a genuine, albeit twisted desire to protect his own, and how much was driven by his own fears and need for dominance?
It's a complex question. It really makes you think about that line between protection and control.
Right.
You know, a self-preservation eight's desire to protect their tribe can sometimes, like, manifest in ways that are ultimately harmful.
Yeah, like we saw with Capone.
Exactly.
It's like that need for control can become so all-consuming, so distorted that it ends up hurting the very people that they're trying to protect.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that not every self-preservation eight becomes a ruthless criminal.
Of course.
This Enneagram type can manifest in many different ways.
So if, like, Capone is our extreme example, what might a less extreme, maybe more functional version of a self-preservation eight look like?
Okay, so let's imagine a successful entrepreneur, someone who's driven to build a thriving business, create a legacy, secure their financial future, but they're doing it through legitimate means. They're likely fiercely protective of their company, their employees, their market share. They're the ones making the tough decisions, taking calculated risks, and always planning for every possible contingency.
So they might come across as like strong-willed, even intimidating, but it comes from this deep-seated need to create stability and security in a world that they see as uncertain.
Precisely. They might prioritize financial security above all else. Be very careful with their resources. And always have a backup plan. And probably a backup plan for the backup plan.
Right, but wouldn't that level of control, even in like a more functional form, lead to isolation?
It absolutely can. It's one of the potential downsides of this type. The need for control can create distance in relationships. You know, they might struggle with vulnerability and intimacy, finding it difficult to really let people in.
It's like they're building that fortress around themselves. But in doing so, they're also like walling themselves off from genuine connection.
Exactly.
Which makes me wonder, can a self-preservation eight ever truly overcome that fear, that need for control? Like in someone like Capone, even hypothetically, find redemption?
That's a profound question. And while it's impossible to rewrite history, it is interesting to consider the possibility of transformation. So imagine for a moment that Capone had access to therapy, you know, to a deeper understanding of his own psyche. What if he was able to confront those deep-seated fears to explore alternative ways of coping with that sense of threat?
It's almost like a thought experiment. Right?
Yeah.
Could he have channeled that intense energy, that drive for control, into something more constructive?
It's interesting.
Like instead of building a criminal empire, could he have become a powerful advocate for social change? A protector of the vulnerable?
It's a fascinating idea.
Perhaps
he could have become a force for good within his community. Using his influence to fight against injustice and create a safer environment for those who needed it most.
It makes you think about the power of self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Of understanding the forces that shape us. And how that knowledge can lead to different choices. Even for someone like Al Capone.
And it highlights the importance of empathy and compassion. You know, instead of simply labeling someone like Capone as a ruthless criminal, we can try to understand the underlying motivations, the fears and insecurities that might have driven him to such extreme.
So because maybe, just maybe, if he had felt truly safe and secure in the world, his story would have unfolded very differently.
And that brings us to a crucial point.
Good.
Is someone like Capone, with his history of violence and brutality, could potentially find a path to redemption, what does that say about the rest of us?
It suggests that change is possible, even in the most challenging circumstances. That we're not simply prisoners of our past, our personality types, or our deepest fears.
Exactly. We have the capacity to evolve, to make different choices, to become more conscious of the forces that drive our behavior. And maybe by understanding ourselves better, we can create a world where fewer people feel the need to resort to the kind of violence and destruction that defined Capone's legacy.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into the mind of Al Capone and the intricacies of the Self-Preservation 8, I think we're left with a lot to ponder. You know, we've explored Capone's life through this lens of the Self-Preservation 8. But I keep thinking about this like nature versus nurture question. How much of who he became was like predetermined and how much was shaped by the environment he grew up in?
It's the age-old debate, isn't it? I mean, was Capone destined for a life of crime because of some like innate predisposition? Or was it like the poverty, the violence, the lack of opportunity that pushed him down that path? It's impossible to say for sure. But I think we can assume it was a complex interplay of both.
So we have these internal forces, like these core fears and motivations that drive us, but we're also shaped by external forces.
Absolutely.
Kind of like the circumstances we find ourselves in.
Exactly. And understanding those external forces is crucial. Especially with someone like Capone, who grew up in a world where violence was often the only language understood. He learned early on that power and control were the keys to survival. And those lessons were reinforced time and time again by his environment.
It's like a stark reminder that we don't all start on a level playing field. Some of us are dealt a tougher hand. And that can have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
On the choices we make, the paths we take.
Absolutely. And that's where empathy comes in. You know, instead of judging someone solely on their actions, we can try to understand the context, the circumstances that might have contributed to those choices.
But even with that understanding, we can't condone violence or criminal behavior.
Of course not.
There's a line between empathy and excusing harmful actions.
You're right. It's a delicate balance. We can acknowledge the forces that might have shaped someone like Capone while still holding him accountable for the choices he made.
So what's the takeaway here for our listener? If we all have these primal instincts, these fears and motivations, how do we navigate them in a way that leads to a more positive outcome?
I think self-awareness is key. Understanding our own Enneagram type. Our core fears and desires can help us become more conscious of the forces that drive our behavior. It allows us to recognize those patterns, those reactive tendencies, and make different choices.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions. Even when those actions stem from a place of fear or insecurity.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that true security doesn't come from external power or control, but from inner strength, resilience, and genuine connection with others. It's about building a world where everyone feels safe and supported, where violence is no longer the answer.
And maybe, just maybe, if we can shift our focus from control to connection, from fear to compassion, we can create a legacy. That's far different from the one Al Capone left behind.
It's a worthy goal and one that requires ongoing effort, self-reflection, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions about the world and the people in it.
So listeners, as you go about your day, consider this. How are you navigating your own need for security and control? Are you building walls or bridges? Are you reacting out of fear? Right. Or choosing to lead with empathy and understanding?
And remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. Right. There's always more to learn, more to uncover, and more to explore. Keep asking questions. Keep challenging yourself. And keep diving deep.